Fractal Consciousness.
Hello, and welcome to Fractal Consciousness. This format is built around short audio essays, small intellectual pauses within the constant flow of everyday information. Just a few minutes of reflection on civilizations, culture, and the systemic changes shaping society. Here I simply share ideas and observations that help us look at familiar things from a slightly wider perspective. Enjoy the video. Rationality as the foundation of life. Part 1. Life as resistance to dissolution. Look at the world closely. At first glance, everything appears governed by randomness, by dispersion, by decay. Matter tends toward equilibrium. Energy dissipates. Structures erode and collapse. The universe, as described by thermodynamics, unfolds in the direction of entropy, toward the gradual smoothing of differences, toward the quiet flattening of complexity. From this perspective, life seems improbable, a fleeting flare of order in an ocean of dissolution, a temporary defiance in a universe predisposed to equilibrium. And yet, if we observe more carefully, something extraordinary becomes visible. Life is not merely an accident suspended in entropy, it is an act of resistance, an act through which matter organizes itself against dispersion, sustaining form where physics alone would predict breakdown. Life creates order where chaos should prevail. It builds structure where instability appears inevitable. And this order is not arbitrary, it is rational. Not rational in the narrow sense of conscious calculation, not rational as deliberate thought, but rational in the deeper sense of directed preservation, the systematic orientation towards sustaining form, continuity, and coherence. Rationality, in this light, is not a late invention of the mind. It is not born with language or reflection. It precedes consciousness. It is embedded in the architecture of living matter itself. Consider the cell. A membrane delineates an interior from an exterior, separating organized metabolism from surrounding turbulence. Within that boundary, chemical processes unfold in coordinated cycles. Energy is transformed, waste is expelled, gradients are maintained. The cell does not drift passively toward equilibrium. It actively maintains disequilibrium, and in doing so, it persists. An organ refines this principle at a higher scale. An organism integrates organs into a coordinated whole. A community organizes multiple organisms into networks of exchange and cooperation. Across these levels, the same fundamental tendency reveals itself. Matter is not governed solely by blind force. It acquires the capacity to order itself. Metabolism optimizes resources. Symbiosis resolves tension between competing systems. Adaptation refines structure in response to pressure. Each evolutionary transition, each increase in complexity, can be understood as the selection of trajectories that preserve stability more effectively within changing environments. Even natural selection, often framed as mere struggle, may be interpreted differently. It operates as an algorithm that filters strategies according to their capacity to sustain coherent form. Those configurations that stabilize themselves endure. Those that fail to do so dissolve. In this sense, evolution does not contradict rationality. It expresses it. And yet, rationality alone does not make the living truly alive. Water flows rationally along gradients. Ice crystallizes according to geometric optimization. Electrical currents follow precise laws. These processes are ordered, lawful, efficient, but they do not choose. They cannot deviate from the path defined by physical necessity. Life introduces something unprecedented. It possesses the capacity to interrupt environmental inertia for the sake of its own preservation. A plant turning its leaves toward the sun performs a minimal yet genuine act of selection. It reorients itself in response to gradients of light. An animal adjusting its hunting strategy in changing conditions demonstrates a more complex rationality, one mediated by learning and adaptation. A human being, capable of acting against instinct in the name of principle or meaning, introduces yet another dimension, reflective rationality. Here, rationality becomes aware of itself. Freedom, then, is not an abstract metaphysical concept detached from biology. It emerges where rational structure intersects with a range of possible actions. Freedom without structure collapses into chaos. Structure without freedom becomes mechanical rigidity. Life exists precisely in the tension between these two poles. Where rationality and freedom converge, vitality arises. Rationality consolidates itself through evolution in layered form. At first, it manifests in biochemical reactions, stable, automatic, patterned. Later, it appears as reflexes and instincts, behavioral algorithms that guide survival. Only at a later stage does it surface as consciousness. Consciousness may be understood as rationality recognizing itself. With consciousness, impulse transforms into deliberation. Reaction expands into interpretation. Action becomes mediated by meaning. Each layer of life inherits the previous one and reconfigures it at a higher level of integration. This is not a simple linear ascent. It is a gradual unfolding of a continuum, where each new stage includes and transforms what came before. Rationality in this continuum is not static, it deepens. Life resists entropy not through brute force, but through organization. Rationality reduces chaos by structuring energy and information into functional relationships. Meaning, at higher levels, becomes a mode of stability. When an organism coordinates its organs, when a society establishes norms, when a mind formulates knowledge, these are not separate phenomena. They are expressions of a single principle, persistence through rational ordering. The higher the level of rational integration, the greater the capacity for endurance. Systems that coordinate information more effectively remain coherent for longer durations. Intelligence, therefore, is not opposed to nature. It is nature extended, matter refining its own strategies of persistence. Reason is not alien to the universe. It is one of its emergent capacities for self-preservation. At this point, a deeper understanding of freedom begins to crystallize. Life may be described as rationality endowed with the possibility of choice. Freedom and structure are not adversaries. They are complementary dimensions of vitality. Where rationality encounters choice, novelty becomes possible. Where freedom is entirely suppressed, the living converges toward the mechanical. Life emerges where rational structure contains within itself a space of permissible variation, where the preservation of form is not rigid repetition, but adaptive continuity. And this reflection leads us naturally toward the next question, one that will guide the second part of this inquiry. If life preserves order through rationality and freedom, what preserves rationality itself from dissolution? How are meaning, entropy, and the capacity of civilization to sustain higher forms of organization interconnected? That question awaits us. Part 2. Freedom, responsibility, and the stability of civilizations. If life is rationality endowed with freedom, then the next question arises naturally. How real is this freedom? Is it genuine, or merely an illusion masking deeper layers of determinism imposed by environment and circumstance? A human being can be placed within constraints so narrow that most actions appear predetermined. Economic limitations, social hierarchies, physical laws, all establish boundaries within which choices must unfold. And yet, within those boundaries, life persists precisely because alternatives remain possible. Freedom does not require the absence of constraints. It requires the capacity to act meaningfully within them and at times to expand their horizon. Freedom is not the negation of structure, it is movement within structure. Imagine an ecosystem or a civilization as a vast labyrinth, each corridor shaped by rules, each passage bounded by limitation. At first glance, the paths seem fixed, but the moment life begins to perceive the architecture of the labyrinth, something changes. Awareness introduces variation. Variation introduces selection. This is not anarchy. It is a deep coordination between rational structure and freedom of action. And the more complex the system becomes, the more delicate this coordination must be. When freedom expands faster than integration, growth transforms into destabilization. What appears as liberation can become fragmentation. Here we encounter one of the central paradoxes of the modern world. Technology has expanded the range of human freedom to a scale previously unimaginable. We can alter climates, reshape ecosystems, rewrite genetic codes, construct information fields that encompass billions of minds. The tools of civilization have amplified our agency beyond biological precedent. But amplification is neutral. It magnifies both constructive and destructive potential. The same capacity that enables planetary restoration can accelerate ecological collapse. The same networks that connect humanity can fragment it into isolated informational silos. The same genetic technologies that promise healing can destabilize biological balance. Freedom, when uncoupled from coordination, accelerates entropy. It is at this point that responsibility reveals itself not as a moral ornament, but as a structural necessity. Responsibility is the capacity to evaluate consequences across the scale of the whole system. If freedom expands the range of possible actions, responsibility regulates that expansion within the limits of sustainability. Any increase in systemic power without a proportional increase in responsibility generates instability. This is not an ethical slogan. It is an ontological principle. Complexity intensifies consequence. The greater the power of a system, the higher the cost of error. At this level, rationality unfolds in layered form. There is the rationality that asks, what is efficient? What works? There is a deeper rationality that asks, efficient for whom and toward what horizon of consequence? And beyond both lies a higher integration, the capacity to design structures capable of correcting their own errors, minimizing systemic risk, and preserving coherence across interacting domains. This is not merely intelligence, it is the architecture of coordination. Without this architecture, subsystems drift apart. Each may operate rationally in isolation, yet collectively generate hidden entropy. Modern societies illustrate this phenomenon. Economic systems optimize growth. Technological systems optimize innovation. Information systems optimize dissemination. Each is rational within its internal logic. Yet in the absence of integrative oversight, fragmentation emerges. Rational parts do not guarantee a rational whole. Humanity now stands at a transitional threshold between biological and synthetic rationality. Biological rationality evolved for the survival of the organism. Cognitive rationality evolved for the survival of group and culture. Today, we confront the necessity of synthetic rationality, a mode of reasoning oriented toward the stability of all systems in which humanity participates, from the biosphere to the digital sphere. This transition is profound. It demands that rationality expand its field of concern. Survival can no longer be defined locally. It must be understood systemically. Here, a deeper insight reveals itself. Life sustains order through rationality and freedom. Civilizations and technologies extend that order outward, increasing complexity and capacity. But in doing so, they also amplify the potential for collapse. The higher the systemic power, the narrower the margin for misalignment. Error scales. And scaling transforms minor misjudgments into global consequences. This is not a moral accusation directed at humanity. It is a structural property of complex systems. As integration increases, interdependence intensifies. As interdependence intensifies, resilience requires more precise coordination. Freedom and responsibility, therefore, are not abstract philosophical categories. They are parameters of stability. Freedom expands possibility. Responsibility integrates possibility within the boundaries of coherence. When balance dissolves, rationality fragments into competing subsystems, each pursuing its own optimization. The result is not liberation, but systemic drift. Civilizations decay not solely from external pressure, but from internal misalignment. At this stage, rationality ceases to be merely a survival tool. It becomes the language of evolution itself. It is the mechanism through which complexity sustains itself over time. It is the principle by which energy and information are organized into durable structures. Freedom becomes meaningful only when it operates within this organizing framework. Responsibility becomes meaningful only when it preserves the conditions for continued emergence. Together, they form a dynamic equilibrium. If life is rationality aware of the boundaries of its own freedom, then the next evolutionary step is the deliberate creation of environments in which rationality becomes universal in scope. An environment where actions are evaluated not only for immediate benefit, but for systemic consequence, where freedom expands opportunity without dismantling structure, where responsibility integrates individual agency into collective sustainability. The central question thus shifts. It is no longer simply, what are we capable of doing? It becomes, What kind of system must we construct so that our expanding power does not undermine the very possibility of continued existence? This is a question of architecture, not adaptation alone, a question of long-term stability, a question of preserving meaning across scales of life and consciousness. Rationality, in this light, ceases to be an abstraction. It becomes the language through which the universe articulates itself in living form. Freedom and responsibility are its grammar. Meaning is its syntax. And we, observing and participating within this unfolding process, begin to perceive evolution not as blind mechanical drift, but as a structured movement governed by principles of stability, coordination, and ordered complexity. Perhaps the recognition of this language is the first step toward a new civilizational maturity, one in which humanity no longer functions merely as a consumer of energy and information, but as a conscious architect of environments where life, intelligence, and technology are integrated within a single coherent field of development. Thank you for your attention. If you'd like to explore these ideas in greater depth, you can find links in the description to texts and preprints where the topic is discussed in more detail. Here on the channel Fractal Consciousness, you'll always find a space for calm reflections on complex and fascinating subjects. All the best. And until the next reflection.